What's up, a Cinema Shogun here, and over the past couple of days I've been getting kind of frustrated. Frustrated at how the mainstream media will totally ignore some stories while boosting other stories. How the mainstream media is so picky about what they deem as newsworthy or appropriate to talk about. And to be frank, I've been getting frustrated at independent media sources as well. And how, we're supposed to be, people like me, us YouTubers, us people who cover the news, we're supposed to be the alternative source. A source that you can come to trust more than the mainstream media. A source that you can come to knowing that you're going to get honest opinions. But as I look around, it seems as if a lot of the independent media these days, they sit around waiting to see what the mainstream media deems as newsworthy. And what the mainstream media, how the mainstream media basically dictates what's okay to talk about and what's not okay to talk about. Over the past couple of days, a lot of people have been talking about a missing little girl from New York. Luckily, she was found. I'm so happy she was found, and I'm so happy that so many people were willing to use their platforms and speak up, trying to spread awareness about this missing little girl. But at the same time, I was just thinking, it's crazy how the mainstream media blew up this story about one missing child in New York, yet it totally ignores and buries the news stories about all of the missing kids down in Maui. And then I watched the independent media put so much energy into one news story, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining about that. Yet they totally ignore all of these other missing kids, and I guess the reason why is because the mainstream media didn't deem it as important enough to talk about. And a lot of these independent media sources, they know. As a YouTuber, trust me, you make so many videos a day or a week, you know what YouTube does not want you talking about. And as I look around, it's obvious, it's appropriate, it's okay. Everyone's been given the green light to talk about certain true crime cases and certain missing little girls and little boys. Yet, no one is supposed to talk about what's going on down in Maui. No one's even really talking about all of these missing kids out in Cleveland and Ohio. A lot of really weird stories that totally just go ignored. And you would think that independent media outlets or independent news people, true crimers, whatever you want to call them, you would think that if they were so passionate about finding missing children, that they would put 1 ounce of energy into what's going on in Maui, but you're not going to get any of it because the mainstream media hasn't deemed it as a trending, important topic to talk about. And everyone basically knows, hey, this is going to be bad for your channel or your outlet or wherever your platform if you talk about these things. Now, of course, people like me, and there's other people out there who are willing to fight through the censorship, and we're willing to raise awareness about these stories regardless. And, I've noticed that the mainstream media, they have managed to convince a lot of people that this is all a big conspiracy theory. That all of the missing kids down in Maui, that's a conspiracy theory. Don't worry about that one. We know that you're supposedly an advocate for missing kids, but don't worry about the hundreds of missing kids in Maui. We want you to focus on this other missing person or this other missing person. That's fine. The kids missing down in Maui, don't question it. It's a big conspiracy, right? So I'm looking around and I realize that a lot of people, even some of you watching this video, you've been convinced that, oh, that must not be true. That must be fake news. That must just be, one of those weird things we see on the internet. But I can assure you that that's not the case. I've been closely following this story since basically day one. If you've been watching along with me, then you know that it's been 2 months basically now, and we haven't got a straight answer about anything. We have yet to get a straight answer about how many people died, how many people were missing. No one knows. No one knows the real numbers. And as far as all of these missing kids go, this is not something that I just came up with off the top of my head and decided, you know what? I'm going to ignore all of these other news stories going on for 2 months. News stories that I probably would have gotten more money talking about. News stories that I would have gotten more subscribers talking about. News stories that would have been better for my YouTube channel, because when I talk about things like Maui, it's bad for my YouTube channel. Do you think that I sat here for 2 months talking about these missing kids just because I liked the sound of my voice? No. This isn't something I came up with off the top of my head. This is not some internet rumors, internet conspiracy that people created on Twitter or on Reddit or wherever. No. We're all going off the words of actual public officials in the days after this fire. We're all going off the words of the people on the ground who continue to question the numbers, who continue to say, hey, we know that there's way more people dead and missing. The governor himself, the mayor, all of these officials in the days right after the fire, they all were saying that there's hundreds of kids missing. All of the kids were home. They were expecting that most of the people who died were going to be kids. That was all the talk. And then, out of nowhere, all of that talk vanished, and everyone started refusing to talk about the missing kids. Everyone started refusing to answer questions about the missing kids. They started stopping press conferences if people asked questions about the kids. It went from everyone saying, oh, it's mainly kids who died, all of these kids are missing, to just radio silence. And at the time of this recording, if I'm not mistaken, they've only identified like 2 kids. And take this with a grain of salt, but I'm hearing rumblings that, all right, that day a lot of people died in the fire, but a lot of people actually died in the water as well. People were swimming out in the water. There were hurricane-forced winds. A lot of people died in the ocean that day. They got swept out to sea. They drowned, you name it. From what I'm hearing, anyone who touched that water and died in the water, regardless if they know about it or if these people are still missing, those numbers are not being counted as people who died in the fire. That's what I've been hearing. Is that true? Your guess is as good as mine, but I know that we're being lied to about everything else, so I don't find that unbelievable. But yeah, it's just so frustrating seeing that people have allowed themselves to be convinced that this is all nothing, that there's nothing to see here, when all you have to do, you could go watch news clips, you can go watch my videos from right after this fire happened, and the same officials who were telling you, oh, there's nothing to worry about, those are conspiracies, don't listen to what you say online, those same exact people out their own mouths were talking about how many kids more than likely died or were missing after this fire. But after all this time, even though the media has moved on, even though the independent media totally ignored this story to begin with because they're scared about losing their platforms or whatever, after all this time, it feels like we're kind of getting somewhere. I know not many of you watched the video I put out the other day, but a state representative from Hawaii has spoken out. And she says that she doesn't believe the numbers. She's going against Governor Green. She says there's well over 1,000 people dead. Meanwhile, they're trying to say only 90-something people died. So she called it out. And apparently, the governor got pissed and texted her about it. So now we have politicians and officials in the area fighting each other. We got people like Governor Green, who seems like he's part of this agenda. Governor Green was all for the smart city in Lahaina. He's all for all of the agendas that we talk about on this channel. Climate change. He's trying to take over Lahaina, turn it into a 15-minute city. Governor Green is the worst. But luckily, some people have the courage to speak out. So Governor Green is pissed right now, but this state representative is doubling down on what she has to say. Let's go ahead and watch this clip, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
When they say, actually, somebody sent me this one thing today about the death toll. It went from 115 to 97, and now it says Maui. Where is it? It's right here. It says Maui police narrow credible list of unaccounted for individuals to 12. He says so. Supposedly 97 dead. 12 missing is what they're saying. The governor, every time he speaks, he never mentions missing people. He says the death toll. He says the people who have been rehoused. He goes into the amount of money that has been destroyed, amount of housings, and the amount of money of the property that's been destroyed. But he never mentions the missing people. What do you think about that?
I don't believe those numbers. I don't trust those figures. I've said it, boldly, and Governor did text me of like, how dare I say stuff like that? That's my truth. As I have not left Lahaina and been speaking to the people here directly and hearing about all their losses and looking at the fence line along the bypass, the yellow ribbons mean missing, the white crosses mean death, and go count those. Way more than the numbers that are being said out there. And then not even mentioning all the people that did get swept out to sea, which nobody will ever find, right? That wind was howling as I came in with Trilogy Excursions. Those guys are boat people. They said that would have been even hard for them to tread water in, and if you grabbed onto something, that would make you a sail and sweep you out. And so that in itself, who knows what that number is? You'll never find those people. And maybe there's even the people who were their other half or family members are gone to even be here to say they're gone. I mean, what's that number? I'm sure that's occurred. I mean, a house I can almost see the rooftop of that was once there, 10 people died in that one home. So how is it that these numbers are so low and they keep decreasing? What are they trying to minimize? Are they trying to make it so it's not so horrific and traumatizing? I'm sorry, you're not going to take away the horror of what's happened. No matter how you spell it out, no matter how sugarcoating you do it, it's never going to happen. It's in us all. We lived it. We're experiencing it till today. You can't undo it. It's not going to be undone. I don't care what.
Why do you think he's doing that? Especially, and can this information of the true numbers get out there? I mean, it's definitely going to get out there with this. So if you guys are watching, standtogetherhawaii.com, please share this video. Please share it. Take parts of it, stick it on your TikTok, get it out there, because obviously for, whatever reason, the government here in Governor Green is not telling the truth to the world.
Sometimes in stories like this, and I was talking to someone on Twitter about this earlier, when you're someone in my position, it gets to a point where you feel like you're screaming into a void. Like, no lie, when I talk about this topic, and don't get me wrong, I know you all are supporting me and you all are listening, but it kind of feels like I'm talking to a brick wall sometimes. And technically I am kind of talking to a wall. There's a camera and then there's a wall, but you get what I'm saying. And it gets to a point where it feels like everything you're saying, all the effort you're putting into trying to raise awareness about the story is falling on deaf ears, and you kind of just look around you and you just wonder, You know, what is it about these kids that people deem, you know, are these kids not important, as important as the other kids everyone talks about? Is this situation not as important as other situations? And a lot of what it boils down to as well is that this didn't make for a cool enough true crime story. If there was a cool true crime story attached to the missing kids in Maui, maybe more people would talk about it. But I guess people don't find it interesting that our government is covering up the death and possible abduction of hundreds of kids in Hawaii. No one gives a damn. So it is what it is. I'm glad you all care. But at the end of the day, I don't see us getting much further with this story until people start paying attention or people think that it's important. Unfortunately, though, this is how these situations always play out. And the most unfortunate part is how basically people are ready to move on from this story, but we're finally getting somewhere. When we have state representatives and officials fighting each other over how many people died in this fire, and we have people, I mean, in my opinion, it shouldn't have gotten to it didn't need to get to this point for people to view this as a credible story. I've showed you all dozens of people over the past couple of months who are all saying the same thing. We were trapped in this fire. They put up roadblocks, wouldn't let us escape. We know all of these people who are dead and missing, yet they're saying there's only this many people missing. I mean, it's been right there, and it gets to a point where I feel like I'm constantly repeating myself, but I mean, I'm just trying to get the word out to as many people as possible that we literally witnessed some really wicked, insane level, evil stuff, government corruption on another level that you couldn't even possibly imagine, and no one gives a damn. No one cares. It's not a cool enough story. So the hundreds of kids who are missing in Maui, my heart goes out to, even if there's one kid, two kids, who knows? Whole families died. I think people don't understand that there are people left behind who maybe survived this fire. There are people who are missing. There are people who died. They don't have anyone to speak for them because whole families were wiped out. If this kid's missing after the fire, you know, maybe his mom, dad, grandparents died in the fire and he has no one to even look for him. It's just a screwed up situation, and it's so frustrating, but, you know, at the end of the day, we can't really do anything about it. I'm going to continue talking about it. I'm going to continue looking into it. Hopefully more officials down in the area, more politicians start speaking out, because at the end of the day, these are your people, and you're expendable as well. I don't care if they offer you a little condo, a little raise. They don't care about you, just like they didn't care about all of these people who they basically forced to burn to death. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, please explain to me why the government can do something like this, literally block people into a fire, force them and corral them to an area where they all burn to a crisp or drown in the ocean, and people don't deem it as important enough to care about. Explain that down in the comments below. But anyways, I'll talk to you all in the next video.